Gina Ramirez. I am representing Natural Resources Defense Council Action Fund today. I just want to thank you all for joining us. As a Southeast Side resident myself, it's really important to be having this conversation today because it's been brought to our attention that industry is trying to get in the way of communities' right to breathe clean air. You'll hear today from grassroots organizations about why the Illinois Environmental Justice Act is long overdue. My community, the Southeast Side, fought for 4 years to stop a metal shredder from impacting our community. So, I know firsthand the kind of, detriment that industry takes on environmental justice communities. Enough is enough. Communities must have a way to be involved in a permitting process that is currently really broken. It shouldn't be up to industry to decide what this process looks like. It should be up to the people who live in the communities where industry wants to set up shop. So today I'm really pleased to present our first speaker, who is Senator Celina Villanueva from the Illinois 11th District.
Thank you, Gina, and thank you for all your great work. Good morning, everyone. I'm State Senator Celina Villanueva. I represent the 11th District, which is a huge swatch of the Southwest Side, including communities like Little Village and Brighton Park, and other suburban communities like Summit, Forest View, Stickney, Lyons, and parts of Riverside, and so on and so forth. Environmental justice communities are extremely important, and expanding the definition of environmental justice communities is also important because this allows the state to address areas where the benefits of environmental programs that are not comparable to the burdens of environmental issues like pollutions exist. Ensuring equity among Illinois residents requires confrontation of the disparities in the environmental impacts on low-income areas, in communities of color, and in neighborhoods that lack economic and healthcare opportunities. These areas cannot afford the negative impact caused by environmental injustice, which is often associated with high rates of negative health impacts. HB 4093 is a package bill that includes a variety of provisions aimed at protecting these communities. And I say these communities with a lot of warmth and a lot of care because I am a resident and a very proud resident of the Little Village community. So when I talk about environmental justice communities, I'm talking about my neighborhood, the neighborhood that my parents own a home in, where I have family members, where I have loved ones, but also where a lot of communities exist and live right now in this moment, and they should be heard. When we talk about this bill, these are some of the provisions. We talk about regulating the creation of new air pollution sources. We're talking about requiring evaluations of prospective permit owners to determine their impact on communities, which includes a review of compliance history. We're talking about demands that applicants for large air pollution facilities hold public hearings and make translation services available to the public in linguistically diverse areas. And also we're talking about allowing environmental justice community members to challenge permit approved decisions because community members should have a voice in their communities. This bill puts power into the people's hands. It expands the definition of environmental justice communities to extend reach to vulnerable populations throughout the state, not just in Chicago. We're talking about the whole state of Illinois. It empowers communities to petition to become environmental justice communities, because again, we want the community to have the power in their voices. And it also changes the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency. It charges the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency with tracking funds paid by violators and administering them to affected environmental justice communities for use towards beneficial environmental projects. All people have a right to a clean and healthy environment. HB 4093 gives residents control when it comes to the diverse effects facilities may have on their communities. It allows meaningful participation, and it helps the state maintain transparency while operating in the interest of our communities. And it brings equity to the administration and enforcement of environmental programs and policies that creates new opportunities for community self-determination. This is important because people have a right to be able to voice their concerns and their voices in a larger process that in fact that impacts our communities right now, but is also going to impact our communities for the long term. So with that, I thank all the advocates that are here on the call with me and who have been fighting so hard for this bill. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Senator Villanueva. Next, we will be hearing from Alfredoromo, Executive Director of Neighbors for Environmental Justice.
Thank you, Gina, for this introduction. You and others in the Southeast side have been an inspiration and a guide not only to me, but to many others in the environmental justice movement. I am also very grateful for Senator Celina Villanueva and CHIN leadership and allies here today in seeking support for this much needed environmental reform that will benefit the environments of many EJ communities across the state of Illinois. Good morning, everyone. My name is Alfredoromo. I'm here today not only as the Executive Director of Neighbors for Environmental Justice, but as an ordinary citizen of the state of Illinois. I reside in the McKinley Park neighborhood, which is an environmental justice community. That means that we have a lot of low-income people, a majority of immigrant community living within the shadows of our society, where a lot of our community residents don't speak English, and where we're dealing with a lot of air pollution. 4 years ago, air pollution got a lot worse, when without any warning, a hot mix asphalt plant opened up across the street from the park, next to several schools and in close range of residential homes. If you're ever driven by road work with your windows down, that's what it smells like in our park when Met Asphalt is producing asphalt material. If you live close enough to this asphalt plant, you can smell it in your living room when you get up in the morning, or your bedroom, or your baby's nursery, which is very concerning and alarming. By the way, there was no public notice of this industrial development coming into our community. None, zero. Nothing from our aldermen of the 12th Ward office, nothing from the city, nothing from the state, nothing from the Illinois EPA. They didn't do it because it wasn't important to them. If hearing from us was important to the Illinois EPA, they would hold public meetings. They would have done outreach to the community that was going to host this asphalt facility. If hearing from Spanish-speaking residents in addressing the concerns of the Asian community was important to the IEPA, the air pollution complaint forms wouldn't only be in English. Instead, the IEPA quietly issued the permit for Met Asphalt. They issued the permit because issuing permits to polluters is important to them. Right now, the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency thinks issuing the permit is their job and getting community input is optional. That is unacceptable, because in the end, we're not dealing with unacceptable consequences of Met Asphalt's industrial operations and emissions to our air. Protecting the environment is their job. Protecting environmental justice communities is their job. Protecting the McKinley Park community is their job. Issuing construction permits to polluters, that is optional, and even more so in overburdened communities that are dealing with cumulative impacts on a daily basis. This bill means that getting community input is not optional. It means that in environmental justice communities that are already suffering from decades of dirty air, the IEPA will have to consider the impact of all the air pollution permits it has already handed out before it can add any more. We need this bill to make sure no more surprise industrial facilities appear in environmental justice communities. If this bill had been passed 4 years ago, Met Asphalt would not be polluting our park today, nor our schools and homes. The southwest side of Chicago deserves to breathe clean air, as do the many vulnerable communities across the city and state that have been taking the brunt of environmental racism for decades upon decades. The sad thing about this is that these are not talking points. This is our reality. I would like to translate this into Spanish. Hoy estoy aquí no solo como director de Vecinos por la Justicia Ambiental, sino también como ciudadano ordinario del estado de Illinois. Resido en la comunidad de McKinley Park, que es una comunidad de justicia ambiental. Eso significa que tenemos muchas personas de bajos ingresos, una comunidad mayoritariamente inmigrante, donde muchos de los residentes de nuestras comunidades no hablan inglés y donde estamos lidiando con mucha contaminación del aire. Hace 4 años, la contaminación del aire empeoró mucho cuando, sin previo aviso, Se construyó una planta de asfalto cerca del parque junto a varias escuelas y cerca de viviendas residenciales. Residentes de la comunidad de McKinley Park que viven lo suficiente cerca de esta planta de asfalto pueden olerlo dentro de sus hogares por la mañana y también afectan negativamente a las personas que usan el parque. Por cierto, no hubo ningún aviso público de este desarrollo industrial en nuestra comunidad. Nada de comunicación de parte de nuestro concejal, nada de notificación de parte de la ciudad, nada de parte del estado y nada de la EPA de Illinois. No lo hicieron porque no era importante para ellos. Si escuchar de nosotros fuera importante para la EPA de Illinois, habían realizado reuniones públicas, habían hecho divulgación a la comunidad que iba a albergar esta planta de asfalto. Si escuchar a los residentes de habla hispana y abordar las preocupaciones de la comunidad asiática fueran importantes para la EPA estatal, los formularios de quejas por contaminación al aire no solo estarían en inglés. En cambio, la EPA estatal emitió silenciosamente el permiso para Mad Asphalt. Emitieron el permiso porque conceder permisos de contaminadores es importante para ellos. En este momento, la Agencia de Protección Ambiental de Illinois cree que emitir el permiso es su trabajo y obtener la opinión de la comunidad es opcional. Eso es inaceptable, porque al final de cuentas estamos lidiando con consecuencias inaceptables de las operaciones industriales de Mad Asphalt y las emisiones a nuestro medio ambiente. Proteger el medio ambiente es su trabajo. Proteger las comunidades de justicia ambiental es su trabajo. Proteger a la comunidad de McKinley Park es su trabajo. Emitir permisos a construcción de contaminadores, eso es opcional. Y más aún a comunidades sobrecargadas que enfrentan impactos acumulativos de la industria pesada. Esta legislación de ley significa que obtener aportes de la comunidad no es opcional. Significa que es las comunidades de justicia ambiental que ya están sufriendo décadas de aire sucio. La EPA estatal tendrá que considerar el impacto de todos los permisos de contaminación del aire que ya han otorgado antes de poder agregar más. Necesitamos esta legislación de ley para asegurarnos que no aparezcan más instalaciones industriales supresivas en las comunidades de justicia ambiental. Si esta legislación de ley se hubiera aprobado hace 4 años, Mad Asphalt no estaría contaminando nuestro parque hoy, ni nuestras escuelas, ni hogares. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you, Alfredo. Our next speaker is Kim Wasserman, Executive Director of Little Village Environmental Justice Organization.
Thank you, Gina. Can y'all hear me okay? Perfect. Good morning, everybody. As was mentioned, my name is Kim Wasserman, Executive Director of the Little Village Environmental Justice Organization located in the South Lawndale community. I am honored to be here today to support Senator Villanueva and all of the EJ communities across Illinois in passing HB 4093 SB 2906. From East St. Louis to Champaign to Peoria to Chicago to Waukegan, our communities have been demanding more transparency and community participation in the state of Illinois' permitting process. Time and time again, facilities are cited in our communities with little to no notice and no way for our communities to challenge those permits once they've been approved. Adding more polluting industries to our communities and continuing to put our health and environment at stake. We are here to say no more. The state of Illinois needs to pass HB 4093 and SB 2906. Our communities can no longer take the brunt of climate change for decisions we have no voice in. Because we continue to be on the receiving end of environmental disasters and questionable siting, we are fighting to ensure that this legislation creates the first definition of environmental justice in the Illinois Environmental Protection Act, that it require translation services automatically be provided at public hearings so that community members who are fluent in other languages can understand and have a voice in the process. It gives community members standing to challenge more permitting decisions by the IEPA, and it codifies a process for protected classes to file a grievance for civil rights violations regarding environmental pollution. Across the nation, states have been stepping up to move environmental legislation in different capacities to ensure that those who least contribute to climate change but feel the impacts first and foremost are not only protected, but have a voice to ensure their communities are protected. We invite our community members today to stand in support of reforming industrial permitting in Illinois. And if it's all right, I'll repeat my statement in Spanish. Muy buenos días. Mi nombre es Kimberly Wasserman, directora ejecutiva de la Organización de Justicia Ambiental de la Villita, ubicada en la comunidad de South Lawndale. Es un orgullo estar aquí hoy para apoyar a la senadora Villanueva y a todas las comunidades de justicia ambiental en Illinois en la aprobación de SB 2906. Desde East St. Louis hasta Champaign, Peoria, Chicago y Waukegan, nuestras comunidades han estado exigiendo más transparencia y participación comunitaria en el proceso de permisos del estado de Illinois. Una y otra vez, las instalaciones de estas compañías se ubican en nuestras comunidades con poco o ningún aviso y sin forma para que comunidades puedan pelear los permisos aprobados. Agregando más industria contaminante a nuestras comunidades y continuando a juzgar nuestra salud y medio ambiente. Estamos aquí hoy para decir no más. El estado de Illinois necesita aprobar esta legislación. Nuestras comunidades ya no pueden soportar el peor parte de cambio climático por decisiones en las que no tenemos voz. Debido a que seguimos siendo los primeros impactados por desastres ambientales y la ubicación cuestionable de estas industrias, estamos luchando para garantizar que esta legislación crea la primera definición de justicia ambiental en la Ley de Protección Ambiental de Illinois. Requiere que los servicios de traducción se proporcionen automáticamente en las audiencias públicas para que los miembros de la comunidad que hablan otros idiomas puedan entender y tener voz en el proceso. Le da a los miembros de la comunidad la posibilidad de cuestionar las decisiones de permiso por parte de la EPA y codifica un proceso para que las clases protegidas presenten una queja por violaciones de derechos civiles relacionados con la contaminación ambiental. Muchos estados por toda la nación han pasado legislación de justicia ambiental en diferentes capacidades para garantizar que nuestras comunidades estén protegidas. Invitamos a los miembros de nuestra comunidad a apoyar las reformas de los permisos industriales en Illinois. Muchísimas gracias.
Thanks, Kim. Our final speaker is Leah Hartung from Steering Committee of the Clean Power Lake County Organization.
Good morning. My name is Leah Hartung, and I'm a member of the Steering Committee of Clean Power Lake County, a grassroots, community-led organization fighting for public health and environmental justice for people living in forgotten areas of Lake County, Illinois. Today, I'm here to speak on behalf of members of my community, which has always been a community of working-class immigrants who every single day breathe dirty, polluted air because their lives are always considered expendable. In recent decades, our community demographics have shifted to predominantly Black and Brown folks, and at the same time, polluting industries have increasingly concentrated their presence in our community. This is not an accident. To this day, NRG, the owner of the coal plant in our community, has made it clear that they will pollute as much as they can for as long as they can, without consequence or the expectation that they will be held responsible for the damage they've caused or the lives they've taken. Now their dirty plant is soon to be retired. In its wake, Clean Power Lake County has called for a truly just transition for our community away from fossil fuels to a clean energy future with equitable job creation and a cleaner environment. A truly just transition reimagines what our community can look like and builds on the legacy that the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act chartered in its nation-leading equity provisions. This means we absolutely must pass the Environmental Justice Act. It is key to give communities across the state a real say in the future of industrial pollution in their neighborhoods. It's time to grant communities the power to shape our own futures, free from polluted air, water, and soil. Coal is on the way out. We know this. Coal executives know this. Politicians know this. Without enacting the Environmental Justice Act, our state won't be ready for when these facilities close, and we will miss opportunities for transformative change. As a result, history will repeat itself, and Black and Brown and working class communities will continue to be sacrifice zones and dumping grounds for the worst pollution industry has to offer. That's not a future we're willing to accept. Are our lives still expendable to politicians today? What happens with the EJ Act will give us a clear answer. Let's do right by our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. So that concludes our speaker portion of today. We will open up the floor for questions. So if any press has any questions, feel free to just chime in or put something in the chat.